Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Tip of the Week. Now this week I want to take a step in a direction that's a little bit more in-depth and talk to you guys about what we call the reach behind. Now the way that I'm going to show you how to do the reach behind is a way that makes use of some sophisticated compositing techniques. And therefore, this can only be done the way I'm going to show you in Animate Pro and Harmony. The scene file that I'm going to use today to show you this is a scene file from Harmony 9 that was created by Stacy, one of our trainers in-house here, who does a lot of really great work for us. For those of you who are using Animate Pro, you can follow along with a lot of the same concepts that I'm going to show you here. For those of you using Animate, it's going to be very difficult for you to do the reach behind the same way that I'm showing them today. So there are other ways of doing the reach behind with Animate, but maybe I can try and think about those as I go along and as I do the presentation. So let's get started. So let's take a look now at this scene, and when we're animating the reach behind, the first step to do is to actually complete the animation with the arm in front the way that you want it to look. And then afterwards you can go back and you can adjust what happens to put the arm behind the back. But it's good to get the full flow, to get the right timing, the ease, and everything right before you go ahead and stick the arm behind. And let's just play this through its speed here so we can check out what it's doing. So you see you've got a little bit of ease going on there. And one thing that you'll notice about Stacy's work is that he likes to work with stop motion keyframes, and he likes to keyframe everything out by hand. And this is something that I'd like to do another tip and trick about a little bit later on. And truthfully, there's no right or wrong way of animating when it comes to that sort of thing, because you know, some people prefer the interpolation because it's faster, but some people like the organic feel of doing the keyframes by hand. And Stacy likes to make use of the interpolation to create his keys, and then he sets everything to stop motion keys and makes adjustments on his own. But that's another tip and trick for us for later. So let's talk now about the reach behind. So the first step is to get the animation looking the way that you want it to look. Now that we've got the animation looking the way that we want it to look, it's time for us to think about how do we get the arm behind. So let's figure out what frame we want it to go behind on. We probably want it to go behind at about this frame right here, because it's then going to go behind the body. So once we select the frame where we want it to go behind, if I just select my rig and I parent up to the peg that's controlling the the forearm, actually what I'll do is I'll just go to the next frame over just to do it more obvious. If I select my forearm rig and the forearm peg rather, and then I use my Alt and I need to make sure my focus is around the camera view. Do that all the time. Okay. Make sure my Alt and up arrow shortcut is going to send it behind. What happens is if you are working with a nicely patched joint here, it's going to move your patch as well, and you'll get this kind of ugly line work, and that's not going to do the trick for us. That's something that is the whole point of doing this demonstration today, to talk about how we can avoid having that happen. Of course, if you try to do it at the shoulder level, then you're going to move the shoulder as well, which is probably not what you want either. You want the shoulder in front, but you want the arm from the bottom to go behind. And if you use that simple shortcut Alt and up arrow to move it behind, then you get the problem of the line work not looking the way we want it to look. Okay, so now that we've figured out that we will not be able to just nudge this thing in the way that we want to, let's find another way of doing it. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my arm group, which contains the various drawings in my arm, and I'll examine a little bit what the artwork looks like. So I've got here several different drawing layers that represent the lower arm. And if I go in my drawing view and I check out what's in these drawing layers, then I've got the completed arm, the completed lower arm there in the line art layer, and I've got my patch, or the what I'm using to cover up the lines, in the color art layer. And then in my underlay layer, I've just got everything copied under there, so that I have a copy of everything in there. And I actually just want to make sure that I've also got the lines covered or colored in the underlay layer. And this is something that I think I forgot to do. So I'm just going to come in here and fix those lines. And the reason why I need to have the lines on the underlay layer will come clear as I go along here in the presentation. So I want my underlay layer to contain the complete artwork, the line art layer to contain also the complete artwork in this case, and then the color art layer just has the fill for the patch. And so now let's go back to our network and see that I've also got a copy of the exact same layer going underneath. And one thing that's important to realize is that when you do a copy paste using Control-C, Control-V, or Command-C, Command-V in the network, what it does is it creates a clone. And what's very interesting about creating a clone in this case is that since these two, and I can tell that they were copied and pasted because they have the same name, but I can also check where the functions are pointing. But what's really interesting about doing a clone is when you swap one drawing, it's going to swap all those drawings at the same time. So this is something that is very useful because you can use the clones to do different things. So if I look in the camera view, I've got that arm layer sandwiched with the upper arm layer, and the way that it's sandwiched is I've got on top here the copy of that lower arm that I've got selected. If I take a look inside the layer properties by clicking on that yellow options box and I go into the drawing tab, you can see here that I've got the color art only showing on this clone. And if you remember when we were in the drawing view and we looked at the artwork, the color art had only the fill without the line. So what we're doing is we're sandwiching that fill on top of the upper arm, and then we're putting the completed artwork underneath the arm. So if we look at the second clone, layer properties, you'll see this one now is showing the line art instead of showing the color art, and the line art had the completed artwork on it. So this is how we can really control what we're doing on the different layers and sandwiching those in between. And then you can see the upper arm layer going in between the color art and the line art. So this brings me now to how can we deal with this situation of wanting to be able to have that reach behind work, but we want that joint to still work really well. And I'm going to now use a third clone. I'll copy and paste one of these clones. It doesn't really matter which one. I can just do a Command-C, Command-V, or Control-C, Control-V. And then I'll take this clone and I'm going to put it underneath everything. So it's just right at the bottom. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take it straight out. I'm going to take it to the multi-port out, all the way outside. And you need to also make sure, if you want the clone to follow the same animation as the rest of the clones, they need to also be all connected to the same peg, because remember, we're animating on pegs in this case. So now I've got the peg layer connected to the lower arm on all three of these clones, and I've got this third clone just going outside. Now if I look at the outside of this group, this is where now I can take that copy, and sorry, this is left over from before, so let me get rid of that one. I can take that copy that I've put to the multi-port out, and I can do something with it. So what I want to do with that drawing layer, which is the lower arm here, I can take it and I can put it underneath everything. except my color card, because the color card is defining the background in my scene here. So if I take everything and I put it underneath everything, then what this is going to do now is it's going to represent the lower arm that's behind the body. So hopefully this isn't confusing you yet, but what I've got now, if I take a look in my group, is I've got a couple of copies of that lower arm that are going on top of the body, which is going out this way. And I've also got a clone of the arm that's going underneath the body down here. But so far, I haven't done anything that's going to allow me to actually, isolate that layer that's going behind. So there's two things that I want to do here. I want to go inside my lower arm group, and I'm going to, in this case, I'm going to use the underlay layer now to define what's going to show for this clone. And then what I can do is I can use the underlay to contain the drawing that I'm interested in having. So if I go back and I take a look at the drawing that's in this drawing on the underlay layer has the completed artwork. So that's going to work really nicely. If I look at what's going on with the other layers, with the lower arm and the lower arm color art and the lower arm line art, those ones have the completed artwork in them as well. And the problem with that is if they have the completed artwork, the arm is still going to show in front.